My name is Olivia Hart. I'm 34 years old. People always assume grief arrives like a storm. It doesn't. Sometimes it arrives like a slow leak that drains everything from your life, one drop at a time. By the time my daughter Lily died, I had already spent more than a year watching that leak empty me out. I was a pediatric nurse in Austin, Texas. I'd spent my career helping families navigate the worst moments of their lives. I understood diagnoses. I understood treatment plans. I understood medical terminology that sounded like a foreign language to most people. None of that prepared me for hearing a doctor tell me that my 2-year-old daughter had stage 4 neuroblastoma. The room had gone strangely quiet. The doctor kept talking. Treatment options, clinical trials, survival rates, specialists. But all I could hear was Lily laughing in the hallway outside because she'd found a sticker on the floor and decided it was treasure. That was the moment my life split into 2 versions. The life before cancer and everything after. For the next 14 months, I lived almost entirely inside hospitals. I became the mother who slept in uncomfortable chairs, the mother who memorized medication schedules, the mother who learned to smile while hearing devastating news because her child was watching. Lily was extraordinary. Not because she was my daughter, because she genuinely was. She loved strawberries with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She sang songs about everything: the coffee machine, the television remote, her shoes, a ceiling fan. One day she spent 20 minutes creating a song about a spoon. The nurses adored her. Doctors lingered in her room longer than necessary because she somehow made everyone smile. Even during chemotherapy, she found reasons to laugh. I covered the outside of her hospital room door with her drawings. Rainbows, flowers, dogs that look like potatoes. Every piece of paper felt precious, like proof that she was still fighting. My family knew all of this, or at least they should have. My parents lived in Phoenix. During Lily's illness, they visited twice. 14 months, 2 visits. My younger sister, Vanessa Hart, lived less than an hour away. She visited once, 22 minutes. I remember because I checked the clock when she left. Not because I was angry, because I was disappointed. She spent more time complaining about parking fees than asking about Lily. But I never said anything. That was my role in the family. The peacekeeper, the fixer, the daughter who absorbed disappointments and kept moving. Vanessa had always been different. Growing up, she was the center of gravity. Everything somehow bent toward her. When I graduated nursing school, she spent most of my celebration dinner talking about a job opportunity she was considering. When I got married years earlier, she announced her promotion during the reception. When good things happened to me, Vanessa somehow found a way to make them about herself. Our parents never stopped her. Eventually, I stopped expecting them to. While Lily was sick, I pushed all of that aside. There were bigger things to worry about. At least that's what I told myself. 6 weeks before Lily died, Vanessa called me. I was sitting beside Lily's hospital bed watching cartoons with her. Vanessa sounded excited, breathless, triumphant. Guess what she said? What? I bought a house. I congratulated her. Then she spent 20 minutes describing it. 4 bedrooms, swimming pool, imported countertops, designer kitchen, luxury neighborhood. It sounded less like a house and more like a trophy. Finally, she said, "I'm throwing a huge housewarming party." When? June 15th. The date hit me like cold water. I glanced toward Lily. She was asleep, tiny, agile. The doctors had already warned me. Early June. Maybe mid-June, if we were lucky. But probably not. I swallowed. Vanessa. What? Lily's condition is getting worse. Silence. Then a sigh. I'm sorry. It sounded rehearsed. Like she'd already moved past it. The doctors think. I paused. They think we may be planning a funeral around that time. Another silence. I waited. Surely she understood. Surely she would reconsider. Instead, she said something I'll never forget. Well, life goes on. I stared at the phone. What? The deposits are already paid. Vanessa. The caterers are booked. My grip tightened. The band is booked. Vanessa. And honestly, Olivia, maybe you need a distraction. A distraction That was the word she chose. Not support. Not sympathy. Not concern. A distraction. As if burying my daughter could somehow compete with a poolside party. I ended the call before I said something I couldn't take back. That night I sat beside Lily's bed and watched her sleep. For the first time, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not yet, just awareness. The awareness that, if the worst happened, I might be standing alone. Days passed, then weeks. Lily got weaker. Her songs became quieter. She stopped asking for toys. Stopped asking for cartoons. Stopped asking for strawberries. That frightened me more than anything. One evening she rested her head against my shoulder and whispered, "Mommy." "Yes." "Sweetheart, when I feel better, can we go to the park?" My throat closed. "Of course." She smiled, satisfied, as if the future was guaranteed. Then, she fell asleep. I cried in the hospital bathroom for 20 minutes afterward. The doctors were honest. There were no more treatments. No miracle options. No secret solutions. Just time. Whatever time remained. The final week arrived, like a shadow creeping across the floor, slow, relentless, impossible to stop. The morning Lily died began before sunrise. The hospital was quiet. Machines hummed softly. The room was dim, except for a small lamp near the window. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand. She hadn't spoken much the day before. Breathing had become difficult. Every breath sounded like work. I remember staring at the pink blanket covering her legs, memorizing it, because I somehow knew I would remember every detail forever. Then Lily opened her eyes. Slowly. She looked directly at me and smiled. A real smile. Not a weak one. Not a tired one. The same smile she'd always had. The smile that lit up entire rooms. "Mommy," she whispered. "I'm here. Baby. I love you." The words shattered me. "I love you too." She squeezed my hand. Just a little. Then her eyes closed. For one beautiful second. Everything was peaceful. Then alarms exploded throughout the room. Nurses rushed inside. Doctors followed. Voices filled the air. Orders. Instructions. Movement. Chaos. But I already knew. Somewhere deep inside. I knew. The fight was over. And my daughter was gone. As people rushed around me, I kept holding her hand. Because letting go felt impossible. Because mothers aren't supposed to say goodbye to 3-year-olds. And because I had absolutely no idea that the worst betrayal of my life was still waiting for me 6 days later. The funeral home gave me exactly one available date, June 15th. 6 days after Lily died, I accepted it immediately. There was nothing to think about. My daughter deserved a proper goodbye. I spent the next 48 hours moving through life like a ghost, signing paperwork, choosing flowers, picking photographs, meeting with the funeral director. Every decision felt impossible. How do you choose a casket for a 3-year-old? Nobody prepares you for that question. Nobody tells you how much it hurts to stand in a showroom full of tiny white caskets. The funeral director was kind, gentle, patient. She gave me time when I needed it, but every second felt surreal. I kept expecting someone to wake me up, to tell me it was a nightmare, that Lily was upstairs sleeping, that none of this was real, but reality remained stubbornly unchanged. My daughter was gone, and June 15th was coming. I called my parents that evening. Part of me still believed they would do the right thing. Maybe that sounds foolish now. Maybe it was, but grief makes you cling to hope in strange ways. My mother answered on the second ring. Her voice sounded soft, careful, as if she was afraid of saying the wrong thing. For a moment, I actually felt comforted. Then I told her the funeral date. Silence. Several long seconds passed. And then she said the sentence that changed everything. That's the same day as Vanessa's housewarming. I closed my eyes. Waited. Surely the next sentence would be obvious. We'll cancel. We'll be there. Of course we'll come. Instead she said, let me talk to your father and Vanessa. We'll figure something out. Figure something out. As if this were a scheduling conflict. As if we were discussing dinner reservations. I hung up feeling sick. The next day passed without answers. Then another. Finally, my mother called back. I knew before answering. Somehow, I already knew. Her voice carried the careful tone people use when they know they're about to disappoint you. We talked about it. And A pause. Then she said it. Vanessa can't move the party. My heart stopped. What? The deposits are already paid. I laughed. A sharp, broken sound. You have to be joking. Olivia. No. Please listen. No. Your sister has worked very hard for this house. I stared at the wall, unable to believe what I was hearing. My mother continued. The invitations have gone out. The caterers are booked. The band is booked. The exact same excuses. Word for word. As if they'd rehearsed them together. What about Lily? I asked quietly. Silence. The kind of silence that answers everything. My mother finally sighed. We love Lily. But there are practical realities. Practical realities. I felt something crack inside me. Not grief. Not sadness. Something deeper. Something permanent. I ended the call without saying goodbye. The next night, Vanessa called. I almost ignored it. I should have. Instead, I answered. Olivia. What do you want? She sounded irritated. Not sad. Not concerned. Irritated. I think you're making this harder than it needs to be. I actually laughed. You think I'm making this hard? The funeral home can probably work with you. For a moment, I thought I'd misunderstood. What? They move services all the time. I couldn't breathe. My friend delayed her mother's funeral for almost 3 weeks. I said nothing. Vanessa kept talking. Maybe you should ask. I finally found my voice. You want me to postpone my daughter's funeral? I'm saying there are options. So you don't have to move your party. Olivia. Stop being dramatic. That word, dramatic. The same accusation they'd used my entire life, whenever I refused to quietly accept mistreatment. I stood up so quickly, my chair nearly tipped over. You want my daughter sitting in refrigeration because your pool party is more important. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. You're twisting my words. No. Vanessa. For the first time in my life, I'm hearing them clearly. Then I hung up and blocked her number. The next morning, my father called. Different phone. Some argument. Your sister has invested a lot into this. I listened, silently. People already bought plane tickets. Still silent. The family can't be in 2 places at once. My hand tightened around the phone. Then he said the sentence I would never forgive. Grace wouldn't want everyone putting their lives on hold. I froze. He couldn't even say her name correctly. My daughter's name was Lily, not Grace. Not sweetheart, not kiddo. Lily. His granddaughter. The little girl he'd visited twice during 14 months of cancer treatments. He didn't even remember her name. It felt cold. Colder than I had at the hospital. Colder than I had at the funeral home. Don't come. What? Go to the party. Olivia, go celebrate. Then I hung up and blocked him too. June 15th. Arrived bright and warm. Cruelly beautiful. The kind of perfect summer day that felt offensive. The cemetery was quiet. Small. Peaceful. I remember thinking Lily would have liked the flowers. There weren't many people. 15. Maybe 18 at most. My best friend Julia, from the pediatric ICU, stood beside me. Several nurses came. A few doctors. Lily's preschool teacher cried openly before the service even began. My ex-boyfriend, David Lily's father, flew in from Seattle. I'll always give him credit for that. He came. He showed up. Unlike the people who were supposed to be family, the white casket sat beneath a canopy of flowers. Tiny. Far too tiny. Every time I looked at it, my chest felt like it was collapsing. When the funeral director asked if I was ready to speak, I almost said no. Instead, I walked forward, hands shaking, paper trembling, voice barely functioning, and I told everyone about Lily, her strawberry obsession, her ridiculous songs, the way she treated ordinary objects like fascinating discoveries, how brave she'd been, how she smiled through treatments that made grown adults cry, how she never stopped believing she'd get better. People cried. Some openly, some quietly. I don't remember much after that. Only fragments. The sunlight. The flowers. The unbearable sound of dirt hitting wood. The finality of it. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, my daughter was buried. And at that exact same moment, my family was smiling for photographs. I didn't know it yet. Not until that evening. I returned home, exhausted, empty, broken in ways I couldn't describe. The house felt wrong without Lily. Too quiet, too still. I sat at the kitchen table, staring into space. Then my phone buzzed. A social media notification. Someone had tagged Vanessa. Normally I would have ignored it. Instead I clicked. The first photo appeared. String lights over a swimming pool. Guests laughing. Music. Champagne. Smiles. The second photo showed Vanessa, radiant, happy, celebrating. The third photo nearly stopped my heart. My father stood beside her, arm around her shoulders, grinning. The fourth photo showed my mother hugging Vanessa, both of them crying happy tears. The caption read, "So grateful to have my amazing family here for the biggest day of my life." Timestamp: 2-3 p.m. Exactly when I had been standing beside Lily's grave. I kept scrolling, photo after photo, smile after smile, celebration after celebration. Then, I found my father's comment, "So proud of my successful daughter. You've earned every bit of this happiness." Something inside me went completely silent. Not angry, not emotional, silent. I closed the laptop, walked upstairs, entered Lily's bedroom, and sat on the floor. Her stuffed strawberry still rested on the bed. Her crayons remained on the dresser. A half-finished package of strawberry crackers sat beside a lamp, waiting for a little girl who would never come back. Hours passed. Maybe 1, maybe 4. I don't know. I never cried. Not once. Because somewhere in that room, surrounded by everything Lily had left behind, I finally understood something. My family had made their choice, and for the first time in my life, I was about to make mine. I blocked my parents. I blocked Vanessa. I blocked every number connected to them. Then I disappeared. At least from their perspective, for 8 days. I barely left the house except for work. I went through the motions, woke up, worked my shifts, came home, sat in Lily's room, repeated the process. People assumed I was grieving, and I was, but grief wasn't the only thing happening anymore. Something else had taken root. The funeral had changed me. Not because my daughter died. That part had already broken me. What changed me was discovering exactly what my family was willing to sacrifice for convenience. The answer, apparently, was everything, including me, including Lily, especially Lily. One morning I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking coffee when a memory surfaced, a conversation I'd overheard months earlier. Back when Lily was still alive, back when we practically lived in hospitals, 2 doctors had been speaking in a hallway outside a conference room. I hadn't been trying to eavesdrop. I was simply passing by. One of them mentioned a pharmaceutical sales representative, someone pushing unusually high dosages of a pain medication, someone pressuring physicians, someone crossing ethical lines. At the time, I'd barely paid attention. I had more important things to think about. But one detail stuck. The representative's name, Vanessa Hart. I remembered it clearly now. The memory refused to leave. For days it sat in the back of my mind. Eventually curiosity became something stronger. I made a few phone calls. Nothing dramatic. Nothing illegal. Just conversations. Question. Professional discussions. Between people who had worked together for years. One advantage of spending over a decade in healthcare is that relationships matter. Doctors talk. Nurses talk. Administrators talk. People remember things. Especially when something doesn't feel right. Within a week, I realized Vanessa's name surfaced far more often than it should have. That bothered me. So I kept digging, carefully, quietly. The more I learned, the worse it became. One physician described aggressive sales tactics. Another mentioned questionable incentive programs. A hospital administrator hinted at ongoing concerns regarding prescription data individually. None of it proved anything. Together, it formed a pattern, and patterns matter, especially in healthcare. One afternoon, I met my friend Julia for coffee, the same Julia who had stood beside me at Lily's funeral. She studied my face for several seconds. "You're working on something." I looked up. "What makes you think that?" "You've got that look." "What look?" "The one you get when you're 5 steps ahead of everybody else." I almost smiled. Almost. Julia leaned forward. "Olivia." I remained silent. "What are you doing?" I stared into my coffee. Then I answered honestly, "I'm paying attention." Her expression tightened. "To Vanessa." I nodded. Julia exhaled slowly. She understood immediately. "You think something's wrong?" "I think something's been wrong for a long time." Neither of us spoke for several moments. Finally she said, "Be careful." "I am." But the truth was, I had already gone too far to stop. Every answer led to another question. Every question led to another lead. And every lead pointed in the same direction. Fraud. Real fraud. Not rumors. Not misunderstandings. Not family drama. Criminal behavior. Vanessa wasn't simply bending rules. She was breaking them. Repeatedly. Systematically. And arrogantly. I started documenting everything. Dates. Names. Emails. Witness accounts. Corporate records. Prescription reports. By the second week, I had filled an entire legal pad. By the third week, I needed a second one. The most shocking discovery came through a physician I'd known for years. He trusted me. He knew Lily. He knew what I'd been through. When I explained what I was looking into, he became unusually quiet. Then he asked a question. "How much do you really want to know?" My stomach tightened. "Everything." He nodded slowly, then opened a folder. What I saw made me physically sick. There were records showing doctors receiving payments disguised as consulting fees, bonuses, speaking engagements, professional incentives, legitimate on paper, corrupt in reality. Money exchanged for prescriptions. Money exchanged for patient decisions. Money exchanged for risk. I looked at the documents again, then again. Every path eventually led back to Vanessa. The same sister who had called Lily's funeral a scheduling issue. The same sister who couldn't postpone a party. The same sister my parents defended without hesitation. I left the meeting, shaking. Not from grief. From anger. Cold anger. The kind that settles deep and stays there. But the worst discovery was still waiting. A week later, a physician forwarded something confidential. Through proper legal channels, a recorded call. Vanessa speaking directly with a doctor. At first she sounded charming, friendly, professional. Then the conversation changed. She began pushing, pressuring, insisting, encouraging him to prescribe double the recommended dosage of a medication known to carry cardiac risks. The patient already had documented heart concerns. The physician hesitated. Vanessa didn't. She kept pushing. Listening to that recording felt surreal. I wasn't hearing a mistake. I wasn't hearing poor judgment. I was hearing someone who believed consequences belonged to other people. When the call ended, I sat alone in my apartment, the recording replaying in my head, and for the first time, I stopped seeing Vanessa as my sister. I saw her as a threat, a dangerous one. Days later, I uncovered another devastating connection. Several patient cases, unexpected complications, serious cardiac events, at least 2 deaths potentially linked to prescribing practices. Vanessa had encouraged. The room spun when I realized it. Real people. Real families. Real funerals. While Vanessa celebrated promotions, bonuses, luxury vacations, and an $800,000 house, I remember staring out my window that night, thinking about Lily, thinking about all the families who had trusted the healthcare system, thinking about the photographs from the party. Then, something became painfully clear. This was no longer revenge. If it had ever been revenge, this was accountability. And accountability required action, so I began assembling everything. Every document, every statement, every email trail, every piece of evidence. I organized it meticulously. The way nurses organize medical charts. The way investigators build cases. The way people prepare for war. 3.5 weeks after Lily's funeral, I contacted someone named Trevor Reynolds, an investigative journalist. Years earlier, he'd interviewed staff at my clinic while researching healthcare costs. We weren't friends, but we knew each other. And more importantly, he had a reputation for exposing pharmaceutical corruption. He agreed to meet Wednesday morning, downtown Austin, a small coffee shop. I arrived carrying a thick folder. Trevor was already there, mid-40s, sharp eyes, notebook open, coffee untouched. After brief introductions, I placed the folder on the table. His eyebrows rose. That's a lot of paperwork. Not enough. He opened it, began reading. 5 minutes passed, then 10, Then 20. The deeper he went, the more serious his expression became. Finally, he looked up. Where did you get all this? I'm a nurse. He waited. I added quietly. And I pay attention. Trevor nodded, then continued reading. Nearly an hour later, he closed the folder. The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. This is substantial. I said nothing. He folded his hands. You understand what happens if this checks out? Yes. It could destroy her career. I thought about Lily. The funeral. The party. The caption. Nothing is better than family. Then I answered. She made that choice herself. Trevor studied me carefully. Maybe searching for hesitation? Maybe searching for guilt. He found neither. Finally, he stood. I'll verify everything independently. Good. If it's real, I'll publish. I nodded. Make sure it's real. He extended his hand. I shook it. And just like that, the first domino started falling. The call came 17 days later. I was leaving a shift at the clinic when my phone rang. Trevor. I stopped walking. For some reason, my heart immediately started racing. I answered. Hello. There was a brief pause. Then Trevor spoke. It's all real. I closed my eyes. Not because I was surprised, because hearing it confirmed felt different. Permanent. Final. What did you find? Everything. His voice sounded grim. The kickbacks? The falsified prescription numbers. The consulting fee scheme. The off-label promotion. I leaned against my car. The parking lot suddenly felt too bright. What happens now? Another pause. Then, the pharmaceutical board has opened an investigation. I swallowed. And federal prosecutors are interested. Interested. Such a small word. Such enormous consequences. Trevor continued. The story publishes tomorrow morning. I looked toward the sky. Cloudless. Blue. Ordinary. It felt strange that the world could remain ordinary when someone's life was about to collapse. Thank you, I said quietly. He hesitated, then asked, Are you okay? The question caught me off guard. I thought about Lily, about the funeral, about the photographs, about the silence in her bedroom. No, I answered honestly. Then I hung up. Before going home, I drove somewhere else. The cemetery. The same path. The same flowers. The same tiny headstone. Lily Hart. Beloved daughter. Beloved everything. I sat beside her grave for nearly an hour, talking softly, telling her things she couldn't hear. Or maybe could. I didn't know anymore. Eventually I whispered, The first domino is falling. Sweetheart. Then I went home. The article published the next morning. By 8 o'clock, it was everywhere. Top pharmaceutical sales executive accused of fraud, kickbacks, and patient endangerment. Vanessa's name appeared in the opening paragraph. Her photograph appeared beside it. A smiling picture pulled directly from her own social media account. The same account she'd used to post housewarming photos while Lily was being buried. By noon, every social media profile she owned had disappeared. By 2 o'clock, reporters were parked outside her house. By 5, her employer released a public statement. Immediate termination. Full cooperation. Ongoing investigation. No severance. No protection. Nothing. Vanessa's perfect life began unraveling faster than anyone expected, including her. 3 days later, she appeared outside my apartment. I watched through the security camera. She stood there crying, mascara running, designer clothes replaced by sweatpants, her confidence gone. For a brief moment, I almost didn't recognize her. She pressed the doorbell repeatedly, then spoke into the camera. Olivia. Please. I remained silent. Please talk to me. Silence. I know you're there. Still nothing. Then her voice cracked. This is too much. I stared at the screen. This is ruining my life. I finally pressed the intercom button. One sentence. Just one. You called Lily's funeral a scheduling problem. Silence. I released the button. Then I turned off the monitor. She stood there another 20 minutes before leaving. We never spoke face to face again. The charges became official 1 month later. Healthcare fraud. Conspiracy. Kickbacks. Patient endangerment. The list seemed endless. Every news station covered it. Every newspaper picked it up. Every detail was scrutinized. The evidence was overwhelming. And then my parents called, not to apologize, not to ask how I was doing, not to acknowledge Lily. They called to defend Vanessa. Again. My mother somehow reached the clinic switchboard. The receptionist transferred the call because she'd been told it was an emergency. I stepped into an empty break room. Answered. Immediately regretted it. Olivia. My mother's voice trembled. But not with guilt. With anger. What you did to your sister is unforgivable. I actually laughed. A short, bitter laugh. Really? She's losing everything. My grip tightened. Lily lost everything. Silence. My mother ignored the comment. As usual. This all started because of a party. No. It did. No. I felt years of frustration rising. This started because you chose a party over your granddaughter's funeral. She didn't answer. Because there was no answer. My father got on the line next. His voice sounded older, tired, yet somehow still self-righteous. Your sister worked hard for everything she had. I stared at the wall. The same defense. Always the same defense. Vanessa worked hard. Vanessa deserved support. Vanessa deserved understanding. Vanessa deserved forgiveness. I wondered if either of them had ever spoken about me that way. Finally I said, "We're done." Then I hung up, this time permanently. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because something kept bothering me. The photographs. Those photographs? The timestamps. The smiles. The captions. The complete lack of shame. So I sent them to several journalists. Not anonymously. Not secretly. Directly. Along with the funeral date. The burial records. The timeline. Everything. Within days. A follow-up stories appeared. The headlines were brutal. Family attended lavish housewarming, while granddaughter was being buried. Party photos. Surfaced during healthcare fraud investigation. The public reaction was immediate and merciless. People who had sympathized with Vanessa suddenly saw the full picture. The comments were devastating. My parents became part of the story. The housewarming became part of the story. Lily became part of the story. For the first time, the world saw exactly what had happened. Months later, Vanessa accepted a plea agreement. 5 years in federal prison. Restitution payments. Permanent ban from pharmaceuticals and healthcare. Career over. Completely. I attended the sentencing hearing. Quietly. Alone. Sat in the back row. Vanessa looked different. Smella. Older. Fragile. When she was given an opportunity to speak, she accepted responsibility. Mostly, then she looked directly at me and said I had orchestrated her downfall, that I had weaponized the system, that this was revenge disguised as justice. The prosecutor objected. The judge sustained it. But the words lingered. For a moment, I wondered if part of her actually believed that. Then the sentence was imposed. 5 years. The courtroom fell silent. And just like that, it was over. Or at least, I thought it was. A few months later, my parents appeared at my clinic. In person, I walked into the lobby and barely recognized them. My father looked 10 years older. My mother's hands shook constantly. Life had finally touched them. The way it touches everyone, eventually. They told me they'd sold their retirement condo, paid legal fees, declared bankruptcy, lost almost everything. Then my father asked, "Is there any way forward?" I looked at both of them, really looked, and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, no love, nothing, just emptiness. Finally I answered, "You stopped being my family the day you chose a party over Lily's funeral." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We've suffered too." I nodded, then replied softly, "My daughter was 3 years old." Silence. No argument existed after that. I turned around and walked away. Security escorted them out. I never saw either of them again. Years passed. Vanessa served 3 years before parole. I learned about it through a news alert. I deleted the notification. That was all. No phone call. No message. No curiosity. Nothing. She had become a stranger. The revenge was finished. The consequences were finished. But grief wasn't. That was the lesson nobody tells you. Justice doesn't heal loss. Revenge doesn't heal loss. Consequences don't heal loss. They only give grief somewhere to point. The real healing began somewhere else. I started volunteering with a pediatric cancer support organization. helping families, explaining medical terminology, sitting beside frightened parents, holding space for impossible conversations. It hurt every time. Every child reminded me of Lily. Every mother reminded me of myself. But it mattered. For the first time since losing her, something mattered again. Every June 9th, I visit Lily's grave. I always bring strawberries. Always. Sometimes I sit there for an hour, sometimes longer. And every year I tell her everything. The good, the bad, the things I'm proud of, the things I'm not. One year I admitted something I'd never said aloud before. I don't regret what happened to them. The wind moved softly through the cemetery. I stared at the strawberries resting beside her headstone. Then I whispered, "But it didn't bring you back." Because that was the truth. The revenge worked, every part of it. The consequences happened, every one of them. Yet the whole Lily left behind remained. Different, quieter, but still there. And maybe it always will be. My parents expected forgiveness. Vanessa expected protection. All three expected me to absorb the pain and move on like I always had. Instead, they faced consequences. But in the end, the lesson wasn't about revenge. It was about choices. They chose a party. I chose my daughter. And if I had to live that life again, I would choose her every single time.